Hello friends, in this video I will be talking about standard 5C record retention. Now as the name suggests, ये record retention जो है basically you have to maintain and retain all the records of whatever work you do. But कौन सा records and for how long, that is a question here. So the first point says maintain records that support investment decisions. Such records are a property of the firm. मतलब आप जो भी डिसीजन बनाते हो फॉर एनी रिकमेंडेशन और एनी सच पोर्टफोलियो मैनेजमेंट बोलो या एडवाइजरी बोलो वट एवर फील्ड यू आर इन वट एवर रिकॉर्ड्स यू हैव मेंटेन्ड यू हैव टू रिटेन देम ऑल्सो एंड दीज रिकॉर्ड्स आर अ प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ द फर्म. If you are an employee and you think that you have made some exceptional model, say valuation model yeah any such stock selection model, if you think you've made it and then whenever you leave the firm you can take it along with you, then you are wrong. Don't think that way. Whatever model you have created, that was created for your firm or for your employer, and that employer is the actual owner of this model. So these records will be a property of the firm only and not of the employee. Second point, now what are the records we are talking about? So records include the IPS, your investment policy statement, which is the first step of portfolio management. Personal notes of members from meetings वगैरह में जो notes लिए होंगे, even those are records. Computer based inputs, outputs, analysis. Whatever models you are using, if there are any inputs, there are any outputs, you need to analyze those and you also need to document. Like in some earlier examples we saw, अगर interest rate कम हुआ तो my model will give some output, but if the interest rates rise then my model will give some different output. Everything must be analyzed and recorded. Then selection criteria for external advisors. अगर आप थर्ड पार्टी रिसर्च या आप आउटसोर्स कर रहे हो कुछ एडवाइजरी सर्विस तो क्या सिलेक्शन क्राइटेरिया है, दैट नीड्स टू बी डिस्क्लोज्ड. Then text, Twitter post, emails, blogs, etc. Any such social media information for your office life, not for your personal life. अगर आप ऑफिस के लिए कुछ तो भी पोस्ट कर रहे हो, ईमेल कर रहे हो वगैरह, तो we are talking about those records. Even those records need to be maintained. Acha, now the next question is, for how long do we maintain these records? So normally for any country there are local laws which will suggest, like in India there is Companies Act जो बोलता है इतने साल तक आपको records रखना है. Then there is Income Tax Act जो बोलता है इतने साल तक records रखना है. Then there might be any such act which is actually recommending some number of years. So CF Institute बोलता है you need to follow those laws. But if those laws don't touch upon this fact, if those laws are silent, then CF Institute says कि maintain these records for 7 years. Okay, so the third point says usually local laws require records to be kept for a specific period. If the local laws are silent, then CF Institute recommends that minimum 7 years of records should be maintained. So that's all. It's a very short standard. Application. Problem 1. One of Nicholas Lindstorm's clients is upset by negative investment returns of his equity portfolio. His IPS investment policy statement for the client requires that the portfolio manager follows a benchmark-oriented approach. The benchmark for a client includes a 35% investment allocation in technology sector. The client acknowledges that this allocation was appropriate, but over the past 3 years, the technology stocks have suffered severe losses. The client complains to the investment manager for allocating so much money to this sector. Understand what has happened here. He is following a benchmark oriented approach. Benchmark, for example, I can say मेरे portfolio का benchmark है Sensex. So I will always follow Sensex. Sensex में जो stocks है that I will try to acquire. अब Sensex में let's assume कि 35% जो है technology stocks में invested है. So even the client आपका जो पैसा है वो भी 35% टेक्नोलॉजी स्टॉक्स में जाएगा। अब ये टेक्नोलॉजी स्टॉक्स ने क्या दिखाया? लॉसेस, मतलब टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनी का स्टॉक प्राइसेस हैव बीन फॉलिंग। नाउ द क्लाइंट इज कंप्लेनिंग कि तुमने इतना सारा पैसा क्यों ये टेक्नोलॉजी सेक्टर में डाला। तो ऑफ कोर्स अगर आईपीएस ने ये मेंशन किया है कि 35% हैज़ टू बी इन्वेस्टेड, तो डेफिनेटली इट हैज़ टू बी इन्वेस्टेड। नाउ हाउ डू यू एक्चुअली कॉम्बैट दिस सिचुएशन? so you need the IPS for that, right? You need to show him कि ये देखो IPS, ये देखो आपने acknowledger साइन किया है, that is why we had invested. Comment: For Lindstorm, having appropriate records is important to show that over the past 3 years, the portion of technology stocks in the benchmark index was 35% as called for in the IPS. मतलब पहला रिकॉर्ड आपको क्या रखना है कि you need to show over the last 3 years ये जो benchmark index है, like in this case if I'm assuming Sensex, तो I need to show him कि ये देखो 35% ही था टेक्नोलॉजी का weightage. Then Lindstorm should also have the client's IPS stating that the benchmark was appropriate for the client's investment objectives. फिर second record क्या रखना है? IPS. पहला रिकॉर्ड you need to show सेंसेक्स में इतना वेटेज है टेक्नोलॉजी का। सेकेंड, उसका खुद का IPS आपके पास होना चाहिए। He should also have records indicating that the investment has been explained appropriately to the client and that the IPS was updated on a regular basis. मतलब ये जो इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रही है, दिस इज अप्रोप्रिएट फॉर योर क्लाइंट, यू मस्ट हैव अग्रीड टू इट। ये जो क्लाइंट को आपने समझाया, क्लाइंट मस्ट हैव एक्नॉलेज्ड इट। सो इफ दिस इज व्हाट हैज हैपेंड, उसका रिकॉर्ड्स भी उनको दिखाओ। टेकिंग दीज एक्शंस, लिंडस्टॉर्म वुड बी इन कंप्लायंस विद स्टैंडर्ड 5C। मतलब ये क्वेश्चन में ये नहीं पूछा था कि वायोलेशन हुआ है या नहीं, बट हाउ विल लिंडस्टॉर्म सेव herself from violation, that was the question. So Lindstorm needs to have these 3 types of records. Problem 2. Malcolm Young is a research analyst who writes numerous reports rating companies in the luxury retail sector. His reports are based on a variety of sources, including interviews with company managers, manufacturers, and economists, on-site company visits, customer surveys, and secondary research from analysts covering the related industries. अंडरस्टैंड, ये जो मैल्कम यंग है वो क्या कर रहा है? मैल्कम यंग इज़ नथिंग बट अ रिसर्च राइटर और अ रिपोर्ट राइटर, एंड वो जो रिपोर्ट लिखता है उसके लिए उसको इनपुट कहाँ से मिलता है? सो फ्रॉम वेराइटी ऑफ सोर्सेज, लाइक वो इंटरव्यूज़ लेता है विद सम पीपल, देन ही विल डू सम विजिट, ऑन साइट विजिट बोलते हैं, सर्वे करता है, सेकेंडरी रिसर्च, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. Now again, the question here is not whether it is a violation or not, but how will he not violate? So the question is, what must Malcolm Young do in order to save himself from violating standard 5C? So the answer is simple. ये जो भी इंटरव्यूज़ है, ये जो भी सर्वेज है, ये जो भी विजिट्स है या सेकेंडरी रिसर्च है फ्रॉम एनालिस्ट, ये हर एक चीज़ का उसके पास डॉक्यूमेंटेशन होना चाहिए. He needs to preserve all the records which will actually help him to go back and visit कि उसका inputs क्या क्या था. So he needs to save all these records. Comment: Young must carefully document and keep copies of all the information that goes into his reports, including the secondary and third party research of other analysts. Failure to maintain such files would violate standard 5C. मतलब हर एक रिकॉर्ड रखना, हर एक डॉक्यूमेंटेशन आपका परफेक्ट होना चाहिए इन ऑर्डर टू जस्टिफाई कि ये मेरा इनपुट्स था एंड देन दिस इज द आउटपुट. Problem 3. Martin Blank develops an analytical model while he is employed by Green Partners Investment Management LLP, GPIM. While at the firm, he systematically documents the assumptions that make up the model as well as his reasoning behind the assumptions. क्या क्या document किया इसने? He documents the assumptions and the reasoning behind the assumptions, वो उसने document कर लिया. As a result of the success of this model, blank is hired to be the head of research department of one of GPIM's competitors. अब क्या हुआ है, ये जो मार्टिन ब्लैंक है उसने एक डॉक्यूमेंट किया हुआ पूरा मॉडल जो है उसको सेट किया है एंड रिसर्च किया है, उसको सक्सेस भी मिला है. नाउ there is no violation till date because he has documented each and everything and he also got success. But now, seeing his success, there is a competitor who wants to hire him. The last line says, blank takes copies of the records supporting his model to his new firm. ये हो गया violation. ये जो रिकॉर्ड्स है, ये जो अजम्पशंस डॉक्यूमेंट किया, ये जो पूरा मॉडल बनाया, एवरीथिंग इज अ प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ द फर्म और एम्प्लॉयर, विच इन दिस केस इज GPIM. ये GPIM का रिकॉर्ड्स है, ये GPIM का प्रॉपर्टी है. He cannot take copies and go to the competitor. That is why he has violated standard 5C. Comment: the records created by blank supporting the research model he developed at GPIM are the records of GPIM. Taking the documents with him to his new employer without GPIM's permission violates standard 5C. ये जो employer है उसका property है. If you want to take it to the competitor, you need the permission of the actual owner of this property. To use the model in future, blank must recreate the records supporting his model at the new firm. अगर यही मॉडल उसको दूसरे फॉर्म में यूज़ करना है तो recreate it and then document it. चोरी मत करना, ये अपने फर्म का प्रॉपर्टी है, दूसरे फर्म में नहीं ले जाना है unless you have the written permission. That is it. This was standard 5C. Thank you.